Hello, welcome to Thor Talk, the show all about Marvel's resident god of thunder, where I discuss Thor feats, battles, story arcs, villains, and more. This episode of Thor Talk will cap off Worthiness Month with a complete discussion of what it means to be worthy. In case you missed it, throughout the month of March, we went through several times that someone proved worthy of Mjölnir in order to get a better perspective of what makes one worthy. Plus, Thor hits a Viking Hulk through the earth. Now, let's decide what makes one able to lift the hammer of Thor.
I am Thor the Thunderer, son of Odin, prince of Asgard. I am an avenger, and this world is under my protection.
Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor. Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor.
Let's start with a full disclosure that to be put into consideration for worthiness, the event must take place in the main Marvel universe. It cannot be from a movie or TV show, and it cannot be from a crossover or what-if storyline, because the continuity can be murky at best. We'll start by going through what we've already discussed and theorized in other episodes of Worthiness Month. In Thor number 390, when Captain America picked up the hammer of Thor, we learned that to be worthy, one must be pure of heart and noble of mind. Having a pure heart seems to mean having pure, good intentions almost all of the time. Now, being of noble mind could be referring to being of nobility, such as a king or prince of Asgard, but given that other wielders such as Eric Masterson and Beta Ray Bill were far from such a title, it is more likely referring to the second definition of noble, which is having or showing fine personal qualities or high moral principles and ideals. So having a pure heart and noble mind are about the same, except for one key difference. The heart and mind are often conflicted. Phrases such as follow your heart and not your mind exist because the heart and mind are often considered polar opposites. While little Timmy may want a pony with all his heart, his parents know that the pony will not do well in their small yard. Both have good intentions, but they had to choose between their heart and their mind. To have both a pure heart and noble mind, you must be good through and through. In the Ballad of Beta Ray Bill, while no specific qualifications for worthiness are given, Bill is familiar with humility, the life of the warrior, and wants to protect his people. When we look at Eric Masterson, aka Thunderstrike, we see that he is extremely humble, and when he saved a man from falling debris, it was brought up by both Thor and Lady Sif as an act of a warrior born. In the unworthy Thor, the reason that Thor was made unworthy is revealed, but I did not feel that there was enough information to accurately discuss it. If you wish to see my full reasoning for this, watch the complete story of Unworthy Thor in the link in the description below. While I didn't mention it in the Unworthy Thor, there is another qualification for worthiness listed. Sort of. In Unworthy Thor number 4, Thor says that worthiness is not an absolute condition. It is something for which even a god must never stop striving. So, you can't just be worthy and stay worthy. You have to always strive to be worthy. Thor says he wonders every day if he was worthy in Thor God of Thunder number 17. The response is that is exactly what makes him worthy. So to be worthy, one must always strive to be worthy, as it is not an absolute condition. After looking through the Dan Jurgens run of Thor, I found more conditions of worthiness. For instance, in Thor number 11, Balder states that only the pure of heart and those courageous as Thor may wield Mjolnir. Now, we have already discussed that being pure of heart is indeed a condition of worthiness, but we learned that one must also be courageous. Not just courageous, but courageous as Thor. Thor has stared down beings far beyond even his comprehension, but he never shows doubt or fear as he charges with a hammer in his hand and a roar in his throat. In Thor number 7, Hercules says that carrying Mjolnir is an honor bestowed upon those who are purest of heart and a stranger to the ways of deception. Having a pure heart appears again, but it is accompanied by being a stranger to the ways of deception. All of Mjolnir's wielders have been far from the ways of deceit and deception, such as Captain America, Thor, Eric Masterson, and Beta Ray Bill. The only exception to this rule is Loki, who lifted Mjolnir in Loki, Agent of Asgard number 9. But the conditions under which he lifted it actually help support that being a stranger to the ways of deceit is a valid condition. The story took place during the Axis event, during which an inversion spell was casted that turned all the good of heroes into evil, and all the evil of villains into good. So good guys became bad guys, and vice versa. Loki, the god of mischief and lies, became the god of heroism and truth. He was actually left unable to lie, and thus was a stranger to the ways of deception. In Loki Agent of Asgard number 9, we also learned that there are 2 more requirements to worthiness. Firstly, only the truest of heroes are worthy. Second, the issue also confirms that humility is indeed a requirement of worthiness in some regard. Now that's not to say that extreme humility is required, as Thor could still lift Mjolnir when he was banished to learn humility, but some level of humility is indeed required. Now, that is everything we know for sure is a requirement of being worthy, but there are other requirements which are not confirmed, but are very likely. It seems very likely that to be able to lift Mjolnir, one must be a warrior born. Now, this does not necessarily mean being raised a warrior from birth, such as Thor, but to have the spirit of a warrior. Eric Masterson is by no means a warrior, but when he was mentioned by Thor and Sif, his act of pushing a man out of the way of debris, which crushed him instead, was brought up and referred to as an act of a warrior born. While this is not officially confirmed, it makes perfect sense. It wouldn't matter how pure and good you are if you didn't use the power of Mjolnir with the spirit of a warrior. Another popular theory is that in order to be worthy, you have to be willing to kill. This does not necessarily mean that one has to kill anyone they fight, but if it is necessary to kill someone, they can do it. Under this requirement, characters like Batman, Spider-Man, and Superman are not worthy as they have explicit rules against killing. I could not find any evidence of this being the case in the comics, with the exception of the fact that most worthy wielders have killed before when they deemed it necessary. However, after doing some digging, I did find the origin of this theory stemmed from none other than Walter Simonson himself. In an interview about the creation of Beta Ray Bill, he said, "This is the most powerful weapon of the Norse gods. This hammer is a killing weapon. It's used to kill frost giants and others. So Superman couldn't pick it up because he's never going to kill anyone, and the hammer knows that. So I created Bill because he's noble and designed to kill. He's got a great purpose as a warrior, and also the noble ability. That makes him worthy, whatever that may be." While there is no concrete proof in the comics, Walter Simonson, who was really the first to explore the concept of worthiness, does agree with this qualification. Finally, as I was looking through every instance that someone proved worthy, I noticed something. Every character who lifted the hammer did so when they needed it. No one lifted the hammer to prove that they were worthy or good. Everyone who lifted the hammer did so because they needed to use it. Captain America needed Mjolnir to fight off the minions of Seth and get the hammer to Thor. Beta Ray Bill needed it to save his people. Eric Masterson needed it to fight off Mongoose. Jane Foster lifted the hammer because she believed the world still needed a Thor. Loki needed it to save himself from an evil Thor. And Thor himself needed the hammer to save Sif from Hela. Thor tried to lift Mjolnir for years, but he could never do it until he found out that Sif was taken by Hela. Then he lifted the hammer not because he wanted to prove himself worthy as before, but because he needed it to save the woman he loved from a being who at the time was far beyond him. I believe, until I am proven wrong at least, that to lift the hammer that first time, you have to need it. In some ways, it's a last act of humility, to say that despite all the power and strength that you have, you need help from this hammer because its power is beyond your own, and you need its help. Now again, that is just a theory that has not been officially confirmed in canon, but it's my personal belief. So to review, to be worthy, you need humility, to be pure of heart, noble of mind, a stranger to the ways of deception, to be as courageous as Thor, be a true hero, and never stop trying to be worthy. Possible conditions that aren't confirmed include being a warrior born, being willing to kill, and needing its power the first time you lift it.
You cannot win. You must know that.
I disagree, villain.
In The Mighty Thor number 7, Loki turns a Viking warrior into a Hulk-like creature. Now keep in mind, this takes place before Thor ever lifted Mjolnir. After young Thor first loses a fight to this Viking Hulk, he later confronts the monster again in a rematch. The fight is finished when young Thor, without Mjolnir, punches Viking Hulk through the earth and he comes out the other side. Now the distance to the center of the earth is about 6,371 kilometers or 3,958 miles. Now since Thor hit him all the way through the earth, we doubled that distance to get a grand total of 7,916 miles or 12,742 kilometers. By comparison, the deepest hole, the Kola Super Deep Borehole, is a mere 12 kilometers or 7.5 miles. Keep in mind that when Thor hit this Viking Hulk, he hit him so hard that he went through the extremely dense earth. This includes each part of the earth, the crust, the upper mantle, the lower mantle, the outer core, and the inner core. And let's not forget that Thor did not have his hammer, but rather simply used his fist. Let's look at how impressive that is with an analogy. Let's say that you had a bowling ball, and you slammed that bowling ball into the dirt as hard as you could. It probably wouldn't go farther than a few inches into the dirt. Thor punched a Viking Hulk so hard that he went through the dirt, through the crust, through the mantle, through the core, and kept going so hard that it went through the same parts of the earth all over again and came out the other side. Well, that's all for this episode of Thor Talk. I hope you enjoyed Worthiness Month and all the episodes involved in it. Since the month of March is over, the next few episodes will not have any relation to the concept of worthiness, but will instead focus on other awesome tales of the son of Odin. If you want to keep up with Thor Talk and even vote on topics for future episodes, follow Thor Talk on Instagram @ThorTalk. And once again, I'd like to formally state that all art and video is owned by its respected companies, and I own none of it. With that said, see you next time on Thor Talk.